Hi, everybody. This is Hondo Carpenter, your Sports Illustrated Las Vegas Raider beat writer. I'm also the host of the Las Vegas Raiders Insider podcast. Remember, you can find all of our stories when you go to si.com/NFL/Raiders. Joined this week by my very good friend. He's a trusted and very experienced and respected journalist. He's also the owner of his own law firm in the Buckhead of Atlanta area. And we're glad to have on each and every week Johnny Shop. As you guys know, I'm involved in pro football on a very micro level with the Raiders every single day. He covers from a macro level. So everything we do is how it relates to the Raiders. And it's got a lot. Now, Johnny, this week, a lot of emphasis with our guests on the draft. So I want to say to you, excuse me, I want to talk to you about the draft. And we all know what the Raider needs are. So we're not going to do all 7 rounds. I love what you said. What am I supposed to do? Just throw names in a hat. But if you're the Raiders picking at 1, who do you want to see them get, John?
I tend to want to manage the downside and address the needs in a first round. I like the big tackle from Oregon State. I'm just not sure he's going to be available. So I'm one of the folks that's going to be left thinking they're going to be selecting from a cornerback. But if I had druthers, I like the big guy up front from Oregon State.
Yeah, I do too. Talise Fuaga. Really like him a lot. I've done a lot. In fact, I'm going to have a feature story on him next week. That guy is the absolute real deal. John, you and I, years ago, this is how long for our audience. It's growing so fast, they don't know this. But you and I started back before there was an NFL network, before there was a Big Ten network. And I remember you and I discussing, is there enough to have a network 24/7, 365? And the way that they have spaced out the playoffs, the combine, free agency, the draft, OTAs, mini camp, it's just brilliant the way the NFL's done it. Are you stunned at how big the draft has become?
Essentially, yes, because I didn't realize how much demand there was to watch the draft really until they moved it to primetime TV and they stuck it on like every network in the world, ABC, ESPN, ESPN2. I didn't think that there was that much demand that we would see it grow to where it's gone. I am one of those guys, one of those people that loves the later rounds in the draft. I love when the talent on TV has been on desk too long, and I love when they're going through the deep selections. And for me, as a massive college football consumer, it almost feels like graduation for some of these kids. And you see highlights like, I remember that game, and you hear sometimes from the coaches how it fits in. So I know there's a core audience that loves that. They love watching Mel Kiper get a pumpkin pie and watching people dig in a little bit. But no, it did kind of floor me not quite 10 years ago when they took it to primetime TV and it hit. And now it is astonishing. For as much grief as we may get from family members or other folks saying, you spend that much time watching that, covering that stuff, working in that stuff. It's like, yeah, but we're not so crazy that we're going to take vacation time to go watch something where somebody says, we want that guy to come work for our business. No knock against those fans. And I know Detroit fans are ready and they're going to have a fun draft. But it's humongous. As I've been saying, and Honda will tell you, for probably more than a decade, the NFL is the single most popular form of entertainment in this country. And for any doubters or questioners or haters, they have been served over and over again. For my money, one of the biggest services is the amount of people that show up for the NFL draft, watch the NFL draft, go bananas for literally somebody saying, I'm going to hire that guy. Think about it. That doesn't happen in my business.
Yeah. I remember back in the days when it was at Radio City Music Hall and Chris Berman would say, let's go to the gallery, gods. And there would be empty seats.
Yeah.
And now
especially on day two. But yeah, I mean, there's thousands of people that are going to hear us and see us that don't realize that's where it was every single year. And it
And
was just on
now
ESPN whenever you could
there's
get
going to
it.
be 250,000 people Thursday night to kick off the draft.
Yeah. And it's great. It's fun. I as a football fan first, I wish there was more than the first round going on Thursday night, but also I love being able to have it on the whole weekend. You get excited. I for some reason I've never been too jacked up about the first round stuff unless it's a guy I know going somewhere that I think is a good fit. I tend to be a little bigger in the later rounds. And I think when you talk about the Raiders, and there's no reason for them not to set the table what to expect for their fan base. They've kind of told you what they want to do. They want to build from the trenches. You know they've got needs in different areas. So every pick's important in the NFL draft, arguably, but new regime, new scheme, a lot of eyes will be on the Raiders to see exactly how they pick.
John, I have not hidden the fact. I think Pat McAfee is great for media. I think he's great for sports. He is what he is. He doesn't try to be what he's not. I respect him immensely for that. I think a lot of people try to be what they're not. But he announced this week, I don't remember what day it is, just with my family. But this week, that he had Belichick on his show, that him and Bill are doing a live pre-draft show for a half hour. And then however long the first round is, they're going to be doing an entire show. I love it. I think Belichick with McAfee is awesome. I love seeing Bill. As you know, I've been around Bill away from cameras where he's not yes, no, yes, where he's personable. I think his personality comes off with McAfee. I am really excited. I think we're going to see an emergence. A lot of people don't know Dick Vitale, the basketball guy, was a coach. And a lot of people love him. A lot of people hate him as an announcer. I think we're going to see a reemergence of Bill Belichick 2.0 on the Pat McAfee broadcast. What are your thoughts?
My first thought is this is what John Bon Jovi has been telling us for a long time. He was the first guy, and we're talking decades ago, to kind of say, hey, Bill Belichick is a funny guy. He's really nothing like you see on TV or media. There's a real personality. There's some men's football intellect. There's a lot there that you're not seeing. So this is a bit of a risk, but a good time to do it for Bill Belichick. And I think it's going to serve everybody well. You're going to have plenty of eyes and ears focused in on what he's going to say. And I think we're going to see more of his personality than we've ever seen before. I don't know that Bill Belichick wanted to take this year off. I'm literally miles away from where he might have been planning to show up, depending on how much you believe what you might have read earlier this week. But I think time off is going to serve him well, especially when there's so many questions on how he can connect with a modern NFL player. How can he connect with a guy in his young 20s? That is in reality half the team, if you will, a third or half the team. So maybe he can show us something and we can learn something. And McAfee is probably the right guy to pull stuff out of Belichick he's not going to get. We all love a lot of guys like Greg Gumbel, James Brown, but are those guys going to pull out of Bill Belichick? No. Pat McAfee's going to go around the corner and say, no, give me the real story. Give me the real story, Bill. And that's going to be fun to see. This is the time to do it. Should be fantastic television, especially for these football nerds.
I was told by someone they expect the numbers on Belichick and McAfee to just be through the roof. And it's not even going to be on broadcast TV. It's going to be on YouTube and TikTok Live, and it's going to be on, I think, ESPN Plus, the streaming. And they expect the numbers to just be flat out unbelievable. I think it's going to be really, really good. All right, I want to talk about the Raiders. I had a fan email in yesterday. I apologize. I don't remember their name, but basically said, Hondo, you have talked about if a general manager reaches in the first round for quarterback and misses, it's probably going to cost him his job. Now, everyone wants to say Trey Lance, but let's remember people above John Lynch, I was told, wanted Trey Lance. They didn't. That's why they survived it, plus Brock Purdy. But they asked me if they hit, if they hit, does it, what does it do to help them? What is it, if they hit, does their respect grow? Are they untouchable after that? All of that kind of stuff. And what I wanted to say and wanted to get your opinion of, I I am some people have taken my comments that I'm against moving up and getting a quarterback, and I'm not. If you find a generational foundational quarterback, you move up. I'm just saying you got to be careful because it is a career killer if you're wrong. Talk about the complexity. Belichick, one time I heard him say, uh, quarterbacks and wide receivers are just, unless you're 100% sure, terrible picks in the first round, percentage wise. Talk about the risk that coaches and general managers take, would you?
Yeah, I mean, it's really not so much a numbers game. We all know the numbers. It's the challenge of projecting not just what kind of physical ability, football IQ, mental ability does a guy have, but how's he going to fit in that situation? We all can rip off a number of busts from the first round. You could argue, I'm not sure how successfully, that a guy like Carson Wentz is a bust. I don't know if that's fair. Same with Robert Griffin. Well, these are guys, of course, that broke down physically. We don't know what's going to happen with the quarterback drafted by Indianapolis last year, but obviously he left the season with injury. Is that going to be a bust if he never gets going? I don't know. It's just such a huge potential downside, and we can all rip off names from Achilles Smith to Dan McGuire going way, way back for quarterbacks that failed. Surely the Raiders. Todd Marinovich. I don't remember his first round, but
Marcus Russell, Heath Schuler. I mean,
yeah, and I think Nick Saban's still mad about not being consulted about that one before the Raiders reached. So I think, like a lot of folks, and I'm not
you mean
like
Matt Millen?
Whoever it was. No, nobody asked Saban about Jamarcus Russell before they took him when he was at LSU.
Yeah, but he wasn't the coach there then.
The thing about checking,
I don't think he was.
Well, I think I go way back.
Who was Jamarcus Russell's coach at LSU?
According to Wikipedia, Jamarcus Turnell Russell is an American former football quarterback who played in the National Football League for 3 seasons.
It doesn't say who his coach was at LSU, but I don't think it was Nick.
I'll tell you in a second.
I'm 100. It was Les Miles.
Well, he was not. He was at LSU from 2003 to 2006. So Saban was certainly involved in recruiting him. And I know he's just an example of guys that Saban gets upset with some NFL teams that didn't ask about guys that he could see flopping. There's too much of a potential downside with a quarterback in the first round if it's not an absolute guarantee. Pat Mahomes, did anybody think he was a guarantee? No. Were there people that thought CJ Stroud was a guarantee? Maybe. He's got a season in. There's just so many litter with downsides of too far. It's not that I'm a scaredy cat or Mr. Conservative won't walk outside when it's raining. It's just that there are some positions, like Bill Polian kind of referred to, of here's who you have to take in the top 10. So from there, not to cover my own tail as a GM, but there are opportunities to manage your downside based on what position you might take. Does Marvin Harrison Jr. have a far higher floor or a much lower downside than some of the quarterbacks that are talking about the top 5? Without a question. My only slight concern with Harrison is size and durability, and that's not a knock on him. It's just a natural concern with every wide receiver that isn't, pretty significantly sized. So when you look at that, and maybe you look deeper at some of the older school guys who they've taken in the first round, I don't remember, for example, Tony Baselli goes to Jacksonville. I don't remember if there was another quarterback they could have taken there. But when you talk about how you can set a franchise back versus, hey, we picked a Hall of Famer, I kind of like the idea of managing the downside. We all know there's an extra roster spot for a quarterback now. We know that this draft is stocked with quarterbacks. And we could talk about Spencer Rattler, who's like the hot ping pong name right now, that Some people are suggesting like Robert Griffin would be a surprise, and other people are saying, what are you talking about? This is the guy that everybody wants to take, somewhere between maybe the third round, maybe a round or two after. I just think there's a better way for most teams. It's probably better not to take the quarterback up there, and it's really dangerous if you reach, unless you can cover your tail with a Brock Purdy or a Jalen Hurts or a Kirk Cousins. Doesn't happen too often.
Yeah, I agree. All right. So, and let's talk about something here. You mentioned Robert Griffin, there's a lot of people there. And now he's kind of segued into commentary. A lot of people are struggling with Robert Griffin III, aren't they?
Yeah, I mean, there's some it's commentary wise, it's really hit and miss. Whether he got demoted or pulled off college football for some strange antics late in the night, some of the folks out there who stayed up for Pac-10 games, or you guys out there in the West Coast, you saw some of them were probably like, whoa. Sometimes he says some things that are filled with genius, and sometimes he says some things that make you wonder how he got on air. He is suggesting that Rattler is going to be the steal of the draft, which is interesting again, because some people have him relatively high, but there's some zany stuff that Griffin comes up with, and unfortunately, there's too many dashes of bitterness. We all saw publicly a very funny for us outside watching Jay Gruden basically explain to him in really clean English and boldly on Twitter why he was replaced. That can be tough to take. So Griffin is a lightning rod. I hope he can trim it down a little bit and kind of rein it in a bit, because he has some good analysis here and there, but there's a lot of things that make you think he's a couple days away maybe from off the air. It's a wild scene when you go back to that draft class. Luck, Cousins, Griffin, Wilson. There's a 30 for 30 there coming someday.
So you look at gambling in pro sports. We've dealt with this a lot. A guy in the NBA gets banned for life, and then you see a bunch of NFL players brought back after a year. Talk about the update on gambling in the NFL.
We have to talk about this because it's here, and we have just seen the first kaboom. Massive bomb. Jontay Porter banned from the league after investigation revealed he disclosed confidential information to bettors, limited his participation in at least one game, and was arguably fixing some things. So here comes the NBA, and we don't know if there's been any kind of discussion or coordination among the security of the major sports leagues, or if they don't even need to say anything. Here comes the NBA up first. Whatever is going on with Shohei Ohtani, who knows? We don't know if there's an investigation going on or continuing. We don't really know. The NBA gets hit with this, and I think they do a really good job in a leadership position saying this is absolutely intolerable. We've talked about this. I hope nobody out there is sick and tired of it, because it's almost a year since we started. And we talked about this from the beginning, and we're going to keep talking about it. This is the first guy to get tossed and basically banned for life. It's the right thing to do. He will not be the last. If somebody from the NFL gets tossed before the season...
Did you just say you don't think he'll be the last?
Absolutely not. No.
Yeah, I don't either.
Let's just do the math as far as the number of professional athletes in a major team sport. If somebody's doing something, there's a huge history of scandal in tennis. That's fine. It's an individual sport. NASCAR is in reality an individual sport. If there's somebody tossed from another major sport before the football kicks off after Labor Day, it won't be a shock. There will come a time where somebody will get booted or shut down or kept out of the NFL because of it. For example, we've seen some issues at the college level. If there's an issue or two at the college football level, you think that kid's going to be drafted or signed as a free agent? Probably not. This is a cost-benefit analysis. The incredible amount of interest generated by sports gambling, especially to the NFL, who has benefited the most. They're trading that for the cost of somebody's got to go. The NFL is tightening the screws, as we know. Location services, all the other kind of stuff that comes out of the phone here is tightening it down. There's nothing else that anyone can do to tell these guys to be smart and be careful. But we both know that this is going to hit the NFL too. But this is just a humongous, massive story. It's not the last one, but it hopefully got a lot of people's attention. Banned for life.
What do you think of the NFL, though, letting some other guys back after a year's suspension? I thought that was fascinating.
Well, I mean, Calvin Ridley's the first guy that comes to mind. We saw some guys, and then remember, we saw them tweak the rule during the season. I think it's okay. I don't have a problem with it. That as long as they're clear with what the rules are and clear as they evolve, I don't think we're going to have a problem with it. The problem will come when somebody looks like, or when somebody should be busted and they're not, when somebody receives an inconsistent penalty, or for God forsake, and I don't think this will happen, when a game is literally fixed or something is significantly affected and nothing happens about it. I know prop bets are a concern for everybody. The NFL has a lot of security, and I think part of the security they have is there are more eyeballs on all NFL games than stuff that might have a player doing something or not, like a Toronto Raptor, or for God's sake, like, the tennis scandal a while back, which was a lot of times overseas. Too many people are watching NFL games. If somebody blatantly misses a tackle or does something remarkably strange, I got a feeling that's going to be rooted out, really prevented from happening, or disciplined immediately rather than not done, not seen at all.
Right. So, an extension coming for Trevor Lawrence. What do you think of that?
I think it's inevitable. Well, here's what I like, and I love this guy. I think this guy's the future. I think this guy's going to be right up there with Pat Mahomes. I think he's a physical mismatch, not just because of the size of his head or his hair, but because physically he can run over some linebackers. This is the first test of this kind of stuff for Lawrence, and I think he's handling it pretty well, because what he said was, my job isn't going to change whether I get extended or not before the season. My job is to go win games and be the best I can be for this team so we can have a chance to win the Super Bowl. Even if I get the contract extension, that's still my job, even more so. So for me, I have the same focus and the same mindset. Now, you may say that's pretty much what you would want your starting quarterback and franchise player to say. I would agree. This guy's saying it, though. How many times do we not hear guys say stuff like that, or say nothing, or irritate some people so much that they send them to Denver? Just as an example. Trevor Lawrence is on the right track. What I like as a fan, the match between Doug Peterson and Trevor Lawrence, you don't want to jinx him, but it has the feeling like it could be one of those that goes a very long distance, kind of like we have seen in Kansas City.
Now we come to the Bidwells and the Arizona Cardinals. We have covered this extensively, the Weagle woes, and man, it just keeps blowing up. What's going on with the Cardinals?
I've got some friends in Phoenix, and one of them asked me, do you have any inside information about that? I said, no. You can kind of see what's going on here. So let's reset the deck. The arbitration is settled for Terry McDonough, and this is, again, not the offensive line coach. Arbitration gets settled. The Cardinals come out with a statement that basically says, see, we didn't do anything wrong. Right away, McDonough files suit. And right away, the lawyer, now that this is in public, is swinging pretty hard, including some entertaining stuff about Bidwell sticking his nose in Cardinals business, telling coaches where the ball needs to go, who needs to be playing, and whatnot. And also making the prediction, or echoing the prediction, of some of us who just see what's going on in Arizona, saw Hard Knocks, and could see this clown show that is Michael Bidwell. He says, and this is lawyer for Terry McDonough, Bidwell's days of owning the Cardinals will soon be coming to an end, and he has nobody to blame but himself and his horrific behavior towards so many people. And that is on the record. He's the first guy on the record to say what's coming. Doesn't sound so good for Michael Bidwell and the Arizona Cardinals. They're not behind the NFL arbitration banner anymore. They're in a public record in public court. How much and how damaging? I don't know. But I don't think this is a position where the lawyer would be looking to bluff. And I don't really think this is so much about Terry McDonough as it is about this act that the Cardinals under Bidwell have pulled has been so disgusting that there's some people on the other side now who just want to out this and air out the laundry. Now, when you talk about who could be deposed under oath that worked for the Cardinals, you're talking about dozens and hundreds of people. We will keep an eye on this story because I think I said that he won't be the owner starting the 2025 season. So that's kind of a fun over-under if you're out there playing with your friends. This is going pretty quick now, isn't it? This is a little bit more than expected. I think Bidwell's got a problem here, and his lawyers have to fight to keep as much of this out of the public record as they can. Not going to be very easy without that giant NFL shield of protection. The other thing I like that this lawyer said was this guy basically, he's in that Dan Snyder category. That got some people's attention around the sport, I am sure.
Yeah, it did. All right, John, last question I have for you is when you look at the NFL draft and you look at, there's always risers, there's always fallers, there's just guys. When I'm talking to the best GMs, when I'm talking to the most successful people, and you've been around me a long time, you know who I'm referring to, they always talk about risk taking. Our Michael France, who's one of my reporters, did a study about over the last 10 drafts. And there have been 11 teams that had 0 or only 1 pick in the top 10. I'm going to read them to you. Philly, Seattle, New England, Rams, Baltimore, Houston, Minnesota, New Orleans, KC, Pitt, and Green Bay. All of them been to the playoffs. 10 of the 11 have been to their conference championship game during that time. It goes back to the old saying, the best teams aren't picking high, and they know how to draft, and they're not taking risks. And there's a couple of those teams that maybe had a bad season because of an injury or whatever, and had a top 10 pick and traded out of it. Hey, if the guy's not there who's a no risk, you go back. I believe, and I said this last week, I had an executive tell me, you can't win any games in April, but you can lose them. I think the biggest impact on the season happens next week at the NFL draft. Your opinion?
You've got a certain number of picks. It's not so much that you've got to hit on a big one or two. It's you've got to fill roster spots. And you've got to have guys, you've got to consistently pick guys that can learn your system and can play at the NFL level. They can physically compete. One of the things that seems to root guys out who are drafted so fast is stuff we don't see, where in a training camp and whatnot, a guy either can't pick up your system or he physically just doesn't have it. He just does not have it. He does not have the ability to keep up with the receiver, the closing speed to tackle. He does not have the physical strength, and it's not going to get there to be able to move somebody off the line. It's fascinating. The team that's interesting most to me on that list that I wouldn't have expected was Houston. And I don't know if that means that maybe we owe Bill O'Brien or the folks that work back there a little more credit than we thought. But that's the one that kind of surprises me most. So I circle around to this draft coming up. We've got Brock Bowers, who to many of us is still the X factor in the first round of the draft. Who is going to take him, or who is most likely to take him? I would, just thinking out loud, think it's somebody that would be making their second pick in the first round, and or maybe somebody that trades up late who is like, we got to have that guy. But you cannot probably, as great as Bowers may be, that's one of those that could just flatten you. It's not to pick on Mike Mamula or Mike Mamula, who was misdrafted way back when in a spot. But managing the downside to some of us, and I don't want to sound like conservative Kathy here, is more important at the top level of the draft, I think a lot about Kirk Ferentz and what he used to say when I would be on press calls with him. And a lot of that kind of stuff kind of sticks as far as the teams that draft so well. You've talked about them. We don't need to praise the Ravens again. They're not the only ones. Another thing about that list that you talked about, you've got some of the absolute best football minds in the sport. Andy Reid's out of this world. Sean McVay, Belichick's, etc. So maybe there's something in that mix, but sometimes you wonder, and obviously Pete Carroll's, all those guys, sometimes you wonder if owners, to tie in Bill Polian, sometimes you wonder if teams and draft boards are going one way and it's draft night and you're real excited as an owner and they come swooping in and pull the rug out from under months and months of work. It makes for great television, also makes it tough to be some of those fans for those teams that Charlie Brown themselves pretty quickly back to the top 10 over and over again.
John, give everybody your X handle.
It is at JP Spartan. I tell you what, it's going to be a fun countdown to this draft, and a lot of people want to see how I want to see the complete Raiders draft. I don't want to see overreaction after a pick or two or whoa. I want to see the whole thing. Let the dust settle. I'm going to come right back here. We're going to listen to all the staff members, break it down, analyze it. Then we'll get ready to drive to the next phase of 2024.
It'll be a lot of fun. He's the great John Shop. Appreciate all of you. Remember, follow me on IG when you go to Hondo SRX, formerly known as Twitter, when you go to @Hondo Carpenter and SI.com/NFL/Raiders. We'll see you all tomorrow.